Tonight on Bobcat Breakdown, Morey Hershgordon joins us in studio to discuss new developments in the Rick Seeley resignation, as well as an in-depth discussion on how the baseball team is off to a quick start through the first half of its max schedule.
Also, Victoria Retigliano sat down with men's lacrosse freshman Brian Feldman to discuss his strong rookie season. All that and more next on Bobcat Breakdown. Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting episode of Bobcat Breakdown. I'm Tom Albanese.
And I'm Marty Joseph. We're going to kick off tonight's show by discussing the latest developments of tonight's top story regarding the resignation of women's ice hockey coach Rick Seeley.
Q30 sports reporter Morey Hershgordon is here with all of the updates. Morey, tell us about the latest developments.
Well, Tom and Marty, it's been a busy week to say the least. All these allegations coming after a March 14th incident at Harvard in the NCAA tournament where Rick Seeley's squad lost to the Harvard Crimson 5-0. In that game, he allegedly forcibly grabbed one of his players on the bench, and he's been under investigation for the past 3 weeks. On Wednesday, April 8th, Q30 Sports had the lead, and they reported Rick Seeley being out first. Then the next day, on April 9th, that Thursday, right after, Quinnipiac Athletics released a statement in which Jack McDonald, the athletic director, said he thanked Rick Seeley for his accomplishments and for raising the program to national heights, and he wished him and his family the best of luck. But now today, big developments came where former Clarkson players, where Rick Seeley had previously coached, came forward. Courtney Bills, Jillian Staley, Caitlin O'Hara, all came out and outlined events such as Rick Seeley kicking helmets, punching chalkboards, using the F word like it was the word the, telling them they didn't deserve their scholarships, skating them when they lost until they puked. Tom, Marty, this is very helpful.
Now, you mentioned in the report, Morey, that a lot of these allegations took a while to come out, several years, in fact. Do you think this is something that now that this is finally out, Quinnipiac players on the Quinnipiac women's team is going to come out quicker, or do you think it's going to take some time for them to maybe make some public comments as well?
Well, like in any investigation, Marty and Tom, once the first snowball goes, the snowball keeps piling and piling on. I definitely think many former Quinnipiac ice hockey players and maybe even some current ones will come out and talk about Rick Seeley and his demeanor on the bench during games, in practice, in the locker room. Like I said, dirty, dirty stuff. This man should not have been coaching at Quinnipiac after his time at Clarkson.
Now, you mentioned he shouldn't have been coaching at Quinnipiac. Now this is finally out. He has not made any public comments, but what do you think this holds for the future of Rick Seeley?
Rick Seeley should not be a head coach anywhere else in college hockey. Other than that, I can't really comment on much else. I'm sure he's lawyering up, and Quinnipiac Athletics and the university is going to take a stand on this. I also want to add one thing. Cassandra Turner will assume the interim head coaching position, and she's a great get for Quinnipiac. She's been integral in recruiting, especially bringing in TT Cianfrano, a top player in the country. She goes all over the country, sees all these top players. She's been an assistant coach under Rick Seeley for quite some time now. The players like her, they like her style, so Quinnipiac should definitely do well in the ECAC once again.
All right, well, Morey, thank you so much for keeping us updated on this big story. And Marty, let me turn over to you really quick. And so now with Morey telling us about the latest developments, I mean, what is your immediate reaction to all of this news?
It's basically what Morey said. It's definitely harsh. I mean, it's for as much success as he brought those two programs to have this finally come out. It's a bit sickening, to be honest. And I mean, after their best season in program history, a team that Rick Seeley built up in Clarkson, winning the national championship last year. I mean, at what cost, really, is what the question is.
And the ironic thing about it is how, at the time when Rick Seeley decided to resign and step away from Clarkson, he was really building up that Clarkson program to be at big heights. And as you just mentioned, a few years later, they ended up winning the national championship. And now to have this happen again at Quinnipiac, I mean, it's kind of startling because, like, on the outside, when you're seeing him at press conferences, he knows he's a really bright-minded person in terms of the game of hockey, and he knows exactly how to coach. So it's really interesting to have all these developments really come out in this situation.
And you hear cases every now and then of players and coaches maybe letting the emotion get the best of them and maybe taking it over the line. But this is well past the line. I don't think there's any excuse for this at all. So it's time for us to step away to our first commercial break here on Breakdown. When we return, Tom and I will take a closer look at John Delaney's squad and why they've been so successful so far in the first half of their schedule.
The Bobcat Shop, located at 1010 Sherman Avenue in Hamden. Your #1 choice for Bobcat merchandise. The Bobcat Shop features 2 floors of countless styles and colors. With a full 19,000 square foot screen printing and embroidery operation on the premises, Campus Customs and Simplify can design and decorate any garment or promotional product as quickly as needed. Stop in and say hi.
This is my mom. I have to make a decision here and
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services, from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. Tom and I will now shift our focus to the spring athletic season here at Quinnipiac. After a promising start, the baseball team continues to gain steam and has established themselves in the MAC with a 7-2 month of April and at 8-4 in conference play. Are you shocked with John Delaney's squad thus far, Tom?
You know, I am a little shocked, and for this reason. Like, we see this team and how they seem to really been built on offense, and we saw that as Skip Gooley, or Dan Skip Gooley before John Delaney. He really recruited all of these big offensive players like Scott Donahue, like Vin Galletti, and this team has really been built on that strong offense by hitting home runs, getting those balls deep into the outfield, etc. And what we're seeing right now is this team's offense is starting to get even stronger, with these players starting to become juniors and seniors, the leaders of this team, and players like Galletti and Donahue, and even Mike Palladino for that matter too. These three have been really increasing their averages as the seasons went on, Marty, and this team has been built on the offense, and I didn't really expect this team to really start out to have that big boost. You really thought it would have looked like last season, where maybe start off a little slow and then start to steam up a little bit as the season went on. But it's completely the opposite story, as they've been really been getting the ball going from the very beginning.
And you mentioned the end of the season last year, and that's why I'm not as shocked, because they did have a solid end of last year, getting into the tournament, making a little bit of noise there in the tournament. But I think the carryover, the biggest thing is that in the past, at least since we've been here, they've had the 1 or 2 big mistakes in games that usually cost them. You look at the team this year, they've been consistent in offense, pitching, and defense, all in the top 3 in the MAC, and I think that's why they've been able to remain consistent. Because they're getting the hits, they're getting the fielding, they're getting the pitching. They're not making those big mistakes that they made in previous seasons that killed them in games. And also the impressive part is they've done a lot of this damage on the road.
Yeah,
they still have 9 of their last 12 games in the MAC at home, so that's going to be huge down the stretch.
And another interesting thing is, like, even since beginning in conference play, they've been winning series against their conference opponents, which is something they really didn't do all that much of last season, taking 2 out of 3 and for each of the conference games that we've had this season so far. So let's move on to our next topic. So let's stay with John Delaney for another few minutes. Marty, how much of this team's success do you really believe is because of Delaney?
Well, I think in terms of the team's strategy this season, you got to definitely credit the new coaching staff of John Delaney. And the mantra he's built around this team. They haven't been making the mistakes. I just mentioned they've been consistent throughout. But I think you can also, you mentioned earlier the seniors and juniors. I think that also has a little bit something to do with it. Obviously, Vin Galletti's been the most consistent hitter in the 4 years he's been here, getting his 200 hit today. So I think it's a little bit of both. But I think the fact that John Delaney came in this season and kind of gathered everything together. He has those leaders. He has some senior leadership, both in the rotation, in the bullpen, in the field. I think that's why it's a little bit of both. But obviously the credit is credited where it's due.
Absolutely, and there's no doubt that John Delaney has meant a huge part to this team. But one thing I take a look into this is how, as I mentioned earlier, of how these players, like with these upper leadership roles, have been getting better. I think this has really been mostly because of them, and agreeing a little bit toward your point, maybe steering a little bit away from John Delaney just a little bit. I mean, because obviously Dan Gooley basically put the system that he ran pretty much into John Delaney's lap, and him and the new coaching staff have pretty much just taken it from the beginning of the season. And this offense has been getting stronger. They're starting to get on a little bit quicker pace in terms of scoring runs, having scored just over 130 runs through the first 31 games for that rather. This season, they scored almost 200, just about 200 runs all of last season. So and they're going to have at least another, they're going to have another like 18 to 20 more games, maybe even more if they end up making the MAC tournament for the second consecutive year. So this team has been getting better thanks to this leadership. And I think definitely credit is due to John Delaney. But I wouldn't go that far to the extent, because John Delaney has been running under Skip Gooley's system, and he basically just continued it and made it even a bigger project on his own.
And I think what the leadership and Delaney has both done is kept this team focused. I mean, every March and April, the weather is usually tough up here. It's very hard to focus. You never know when you're going to play. They've been moved around in neutral site games. They've only played a handful of games here at Quinnipiac. So I think maintaining that focus through the difficult months with the weather, and now that they're finally back into their home schedule, where they got a big group of games here coming up at the QU baseball field, I think that's where it's going to pay off. I think the focus of this team is clearly evident through their first 12 MAC games.
And just interesting of how they've had to work so hard through those issues with the weather, having to play on off-campus sites in West Hartford, and another point even, in West Hartford, like I just said, but even having to deal with practicing indoors, not being able to throw outside like they're used to for the pitchers, I mean. And they're kind of getting off balance a little bit in terms of their system, but they've made it work, and the success this season shows that.
So with that being said, Tom, let's move to our third topic of the discussion. You mentioned a few upperclassmen there that have been big impacts in Galletti and Donahue, but is one of those players your MVP for this team so far? You know,
I'm going to be kind of like going against myself a little bit, but one thing I've always been a believer in terms of baseball, whether it's in college or professional or whatever, is pitching has been really dominating, and it's been starting to become on the rise a little bit. Of course, don't get me wrong, this offense for Quinnipiac is one of the biggest reasons why they're in their position right now. But my MVP for this baseball team right now is sophomore pitcher Thomas Jenkins, because this guy, one of the youngest pitchers, keep in mind, on John Delaney's staff, and he has been posting numbers that have been pretty big this season, leading the team in wins with 4 wins so far, leads the team in strikeouts, and through pitching 7 games, only has contributed to a 3.30 ERA, so not giving up too many runs per game. One of the pitching leaders in the MAC in terms of different categories, and he's only a sophomore. And again, like I touched on earlier, of how these leaders and juniors and seniors with their roles have really been building this team. But this team, I don't think, would be where they are right now had they had all of the different contributions from Thomas Jenkins. He's been someone that they've really had to rely on to lead this pitching staff even. And I think the one thing that Jenkins brings to the pitching staff, last year as a freshman, he was up there at the top of the entire nation in terms of innings pitched. Absolutely. And once again in his sophomore season leads the staff in innings pitched as well. He had a big summer in the NECBL. I covered the Plymouth Pilgrims in the NECBL. He only allowed 2 earned runs the entire summer, breaking an NECBL record. So he's carried that success from his freshman year to sophomore year. But I'm going to go with the other guy that was on the Plymouth Pilgrims this summer, in Vin Galletti. He's been the most consistent hitter in his 4 years here. 200 hit today, as I mentioned earlier. His numbers in the MAC are off the charts. 477 batting average, 540 on base percentage, 773 slugging percentage. He runs this offense day in and day out. He's the most motivated offensive player, and I think that's why he's the MVP of this team. All right, so Marty, let's move on to our last topic here in this baseball discussion. The Bobcats have 21 games remaining this season, including 12 against MAC foes. So, Marty, do you think that this team will keep up the success that we've seen earlier this season, or do you think it's going to be like obviously we talked about last season of how they kind of they were slow earlier, but they build it up. Do you think maybe we see the opposite this year? Or maybe they've had the big success early on, but are they going to maybe go into a bit of a tailspin, or do you think they're going to keep that success?
I think that this team's best baseball is still ahead of them. I mean, you look at the final 12 games, as I mentioned already, 9 of them come at the QB baseball field at home. 3 of the teams they play are behind them in the standings, so those are going to be big games to win, teams you should beat when they're behind you in the standings. So I do think the success will continue to run. I think this is a team that you have a chance to see potentially upwards of maybe 6 or 7 more wins to go along with those 12 games. I think you go 500, that's a little bit of a disappointment. I think they can still have their best baseball ahead of us. They're 8-4. I wouldn't be surprised if they finished out their last 12 games 8-4 as well.
And even going back to last season really quickly, they finished with only 12 conference wins last season, so they're well along their pace to get even higher in terms of that. And I think the biggest test for them is going to come near the end of the season after this long homestand that we touched on. They have to go to Ryder, currently in first place, only 1 loss in MAC play. Now, they have played fewer games than a lot of the other teams in the MAC due to rainouts, etc. But I think that's going to be even a bigger test. And like you touched on earlier, this team has really progressed on the road. So not just the home games, but the road games are going to definitely be big for this team as well. So, Marty, only time will tell if the baseball team, success will last all the way to the MAC playoffs. We're going to take another quick break. When we return, Victoria Retigliano interviewed one of the young freshmen in the men's lacrosse team, Brian Feldman, with his first big season as a Bobcat. Don't go anywhere. Bobcat Breakdown. We'll be right back.
The Bobcat Shop, located at 1010 Sherman Avenue in Hamden. Your #1 choice for Bobcat merchandise. The Bobcat Shop features 2 floors of countless styles and colors. With a full 19,000 square foot screen printing and embroidery operation on the premises, Campus Customs and Simplify can design and decorate any garment or promotional product as quickly as needed. Stop in and say hi.
Back to his Hollywood. This is my mom. I have to make a decision here and back.
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services, from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
We're back on Bobcat Breakdown. The men's lacrosse team is coming off its 9-7 win over Canisius, moving them to second place in the MAC. Prior to the game, Q30 Sports' Victoria Retigliano got the chance to sit down with freshman attack Brian Feldman to discuss his first season as a Bobcat, as well as the team's success.
So you're a freshman and you're second on the team in goals. What do you think makes you so successful in goal scoring?
A lot of off-ball movement. I've been playing lacrosse since I was in first grade. I love to shoot the ball. I've been work pretty hard off practice at shooting, and I just think that finding the net is a key part of the game.
Okay, have you always played offense?
Yeah, I've never played defense. Everybody asks me usually what position you play, and they're probably thinking that I play defense just because I'm a big-bodied kid, and I've always played offense ever since first grade. So.
How did your coach in high school prepare you for college lacrosse?
He always worked me pretty hard on the field. He never let me quit. I'd say my high school teammates really helped me out too a lot. I was always there for them, they were there for me, and it's just kind of like a family thing, here, you never let somebody down, you just do what you got to do.
Is the style of play at Quinnipiac different than it was when you attended Canandaigua Academy?
It's a lot faster play, but it's kind of same thing. It's free flowing offense. There's not many set plays. like a lot of teams in college like have set plays, and this year Coach mentioned that we're going to try to go to more of a free-flowing offense, which I really like, seeing how I have a hard time remembering plays and stuff. But I would say it's the same besides the pace of the game. You know, it's a lot faster, and that's about all.
And then what's it like playing with such successful players like Ryan Keenan and Michael Segal?
I play with Ryan Keenan and Michael Segal all the time. You know, we do our thing down there. We're pretty much the ball handlers of the offense. People look up to us to try to get the job done, and I just think that they're huge contributors to the team. You know, like Mike, he's got the most points on the team right now. Ryan's ahead of me in the goals, I think, right now. But you know, we work together as a team, and it's just a great feeling when you're out there with them.
And then you currently have the most amount of shots on the team. What is it that generates so much offense for you specifically?
Time and room. You know, I got a pretty powerful shot, and I like to take advantage of it. You know, most people don't like to shoot the ball outside 15 yards, but like I said, with speed on a shot, you know, it can go anywhere. And I just like to take advantage of any shot I can get. You know, it might not have the best percentage on the goal, but the shot could go anytime. You know, goalie might not be ready or something like that. I just like to step in and rip it.
You had 5 goals in the game against Stony Brook. What was clicking in that game for you?
Actually, you know, the goalie that was playing that game, one of the goalie that started before him got hurt. He is out of the game, and I actually played against a goalie in high school. So, you know, just like getting after another kid that I used to play against, you know, talking a little smack to him and just getting in his head, you know, is really a great feeling. And then putting in 5 goals on him just really, after the game, you know, just feels great.
Thanks very much, Victoria. We're going to take one final break, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, Tom and I will be debating each of the remaining spring teams to see how each of their seasons will end. Stay with us.
The Bobcat Shop, located at 1010 Sherman Avenue in Hamden. Your #1 choice for Bobcat merchandise. The Bobcat Shop features 2 floors of countless styles and colors. With a full 19,000 square foot screen printing and embroidery operation on the premises, Campus Customs and Simplify can design and decorate any garment or promotional product as quickly as needed. Stop in and say hi.
Back to his Hollywood. This is my mom. Make it sit here and back.
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services, from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
We're back on Bobcat Breakdown. All right, Marty, it's time for the fun part of our show, as we're going to play a couple of quick games while taking a closer look at each of the spring teams that we have left to talk about today and where they stand right now. So we're going to begin with a quick game of over-under. So we're going to start with the softball team. Jill Korowski's team currently has a record of 8-25 with a 4-6 record in conference play. Now, over the past week, the Bobcats played 6 straight games on the road. They were swept by Canisius on Saturday, then earned 2 straight wins on Sunday against Niagara before getting swept by Fairfield on Tuesday. So, Marty, this team has been really struggling to pick up wins all season. Do you think they're going to finish the season with over or under 16 total wins? What do you say?
I'm going to say under, because they've just, you mentioned, they've been too inconsistent. They've been struggling to string together wins. The one thing we talked about that the baseball team's been doing well is winning series. That's not what the softball team's been doing. They 2 more losses today, though they were close games. I just think they're just under what they need to be doing. They've done a lot of good things right, but they've also made the mistakes that have cost them some games they could have won. They lost a game in 8 innings by only 1 run today.
Right.
A few other things go the right way, that might be a win. But I just think in terms of what they have on the horizon. Yeah, there are some more home games compared to the first half of the schedule, but I think they just dug themselves into too big of a hole right now with only 8 wins. You mentioned the amount of games left to play. I just don't think they can reach 16 wins.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. And I'm going to take a point that you said earlier of how what the baseball team's been able to do was win these close games, come up with the clutch hits that mean the most. Softball team just has not done that, so I'm going to say under as well. But I'm going to go they're going to go somewhere between 13 to 15 wins. I still think this team is going to have some success since a few of the conference players that they have left to play are under them in the standings. So I think the success is going to come out of that. So now we're going to focus back to what we talked about earlier, Marty, and the baseball team, who currently stand tied for second place right now in the MAC with Canisius at 8-4 with a conference record. So, Marty, the Bobcats have won each 3-game series against conference foes, 2-1, as I touched on earlier. So, with 12 conference games remaining, if this pattern keeps going, they're going to finish in conference play at 16-8. Are they going to get to at least 15 wins, in your opinion?
I think so, because I think we mentioned it, 9 of their last 12 games are on the road, are at home. So that's a big plus for a team that has barely played any games at their home field.
Right.
The weather conditions just have made it difficult the entire season, same as last year. I think the one test that we did talk about earlier is the Rider Series on the road. I think if they can get at least one game out of that, that's going to be big moving forward confidence-wise. But I think the fact that they play 9 of their next 12 games in the MAC in their backyard virtually, I think that's going to be big, and I think this team's best baseball, like I said earlier, is still ahead of them.
We saw them at the end of last season. Obviously, they played really well heading into the MAC championships. They did have a few games get taken away from them, though. So I'm going to say over as well, but I'm going to say around 16, around what this pattern is going to be like, because, yeah, I think with the one series that they're going to struggle in is at Rider since they're going on the road. But if they can get a couple of sweeps at home, I think they're going to be in good shape to get over 16 or 15 conference wins, rather.
Okay, so now we're going to do a buy or sell segment on both tennis teams as well as the women's lacrosse team. Let's start with the tennis teams. Both squads are enjoying pretty successful springs in the MAC play, and with only 3 matches remaining, both men's and women's teams are undefeated at 4-0 and 5-0 respectively. So starting with the men's team, Tom, would you buy or sell that they're going to finish their MAC schedule undefeated?
All right, for the men, I'm going to have to sell that because I think that this team has been doing well. Most of their damage has been at home, being perfect record at home. They've been struggling on the road, going 2-3. And this team has had their slips and falls, you could probably say, on the road, by just not doing well. Like, they have been dominating in the singles matches, but what they haven't been really contributing with as much of is the doubles. And as a lot of their pairings are under 500 so far this season. So I think the one big test for them is going to be against Marist on the road. Of course, the remaining schedule is on the road, but I think that's the one game that they're going to slip and fall. So I think they're going to finish with just 1 loss in conference play.
Well, I'm going to buy it and say that they will go undefeated. I think both of these tennis teams will go undefeated because they have been so consistent in the MAC and in the NEC going back to a few years. But I do think that their one big thing is the fact that they have struggled on the road, 2-3, under 500 on the road. That Marist is going to be tough. What about the women's?
Well, obviously, you just touched on how you feel that both men and women are going to be undefeated. I'm going to buy the women because the women, I think, are a little bit stronger than the men of how they have been more consistent both at home and on the road. And this is a team that has been led by a great core group of ladies who have been doing such a great job all season. And I think it's just going to keep up for them. So I'm going to say the men are going to finish with 1 loss, but the women are going to go undefeated. And they're both going to hopefully go looking like the way they are right now, rather. They're going to looking pretty good for the MAC playoffs.
So now we'll shift our focus to the women's lacrosse team. The Bobcats have not enjoyed as much success as the tennis teams in 2015. Currently 2-12 overall and just 1-5 in MAC play. Coach Danny Caro's team needs wins in both of their final games, as well as some help from other teams in the standings in order to clinch a playoff spot. So with that being said, are you buying that this team can clinch a spot in the MAC tournament?
They've been starting to heat up a little bit, despite that loss that they had just the past weekend against Niagara. But unfortunately, I don't think they're going to have enough to make the playoffs. Like, this team has been kind of struggling mostly on the defensive end, and we see it on the goaltending, which just has not been very strong this season. And the one issue I have with this women's lacrosse team is how they've been giving up about 14 to 15 goals a game, only been scoring about 7 to 8 goals per game. That's just not going to get it done, especially against these MAC opponents. They've got a decent offense, but unfortunately, only players like Kelly Babstock and the rest of their offense, for that matter, are just the only pieces that they have, and there's just not enough for me.
I think offensively they have been good, but I don't see where you see they've been heating up at all. They're 2-12, they're 1-5 in the MAC. I don't think there's a chance this team gets in. They need wins and help. If they lose to Siena, then there's virtually no chance they get in. So that's all the time we have for this week on Bobcat Breakdown.
For all the latest on Quinnipiac sports, be sure to check out Q30television.com and follow us on Twitter at Q30 Sports.
And also be sure to check out theqbsn.com and on Twitter at QBSN.
For Marty Joseph, I'm Tom Albanese. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good night.